Old man's lesson. All right, kids, settle in. I've got a story for you tonight. It's about three boys who thought fighting was the only way to be strong, but they learned a lesson that changed them forever. Once upon a time, in the town of Sunnyvale, there were three boys named Leo, Max, and Sam. These three were inseparable. They played together, walked home together, and even sat together in class. But as much as they were friends, they were also the biggest rivals. Everything turned into a competition, and sometimes, these competitions led to arguments and fights. If Leo won a game, Max would argue that he cheated. If Sam scored higher on a test, Leo would accuse him of showing off. And if Max did well at anything, Sam and Leo would team up and tease him, calling him a know-it-all. Their teachers and parents tried everything. They lectured, separated them in class, and even made them work together on projects. But nothing seemed to break the habit. The three boys were always butting heads. One day, their school organized a 2-day picnic to Willow Woods, a beautiful forest with tall, ancient trees, a sparkling lake, and wildflowers everywhere. When the boys heard about the picnic, they were thrilled. They couldn't wait to run through the forest, splash in the lake, and stay up late telling stories with their classmates. But their teacher, Miss Clara, had a special plan in mind. Leo, Max, Sam, she said as she called them aside. You three will be sharing a tent. You'll be together for the entire trip. The boys looked at each other, rolling their eyes. We can handle it, Leo scoffed. Miss Clara smiled knowingly. Good, because I have a challenge for you. I want you three to go this whole trip without arguing. If you do, I have a surprise waiting for you back at school. A surprise? That got the boys' attention. They were curious and even a little excited. Maybe it was something cool, like a new soccer ball or an extra recess. So, they agreed. All right, Miss Clara, we won't argue. We'll prove we can do it. The day of the picnic finally arrived. The students hopped on the bus with their bags, snacks, and sleeping bags, ready for adventure. The bus ride was loud and cheerful, with kids singing songs and telling jokes. Even Leo, Max, and Sam joined in, feeling the excitement. But as soon as they got to the campsite, things started to go wrong. They were setting up their tent when Leo grabbed the instructions. Here, let me do it. I'm the best at reading maps and instructions. Max snatched it from him. No, you're not. You always mess it up. Let me handle it. Sam jumped in, shaking his head. Both of you, give it to me. I know exactly how to set up a tent. Within seconds, the boys were bickering again. They tugged at the tent poles, blaming each other every time something went wrong. The other kids watched, laughing a little as they tried to avoid getting hit by flying stakes and ropes. Just then, Miss Clara walked by. She raised an eyebrow. Boys, remember our agreement? The boys fell silent, glancing at each other. With a sigh, they worked together, putting up the tent, this time without arguing, even though it was hard. By the time they were finished, they were exhausted and frustrated. That night, the teachers organized a campfire where everyone gathered around, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Miss Clara told a tale about the old forest and the secrets it held. She spoke of ancient spirits and magic hidden deep within the woods. The boys scoffed at the idea, but secretly, each of them felt a little thrill. They stayed up late that night, telling spooky stories and trying to scare each other, but eventually, they drifted off to sleep. The next day, something strange happened. The boys woke up to find a thick fog surrounding the campsite. The other kids were still sleeping, and the teachers were nowhere to be seen. Leo, Max, and Sam rubbed their eyes, shivering as they stepped out of their tent. Where did everyone go? Sam whispered, looking around. Suddenly, they heard a faint voice coming from the woods. Leo, Max, Sam. The boys looked at each other, their hearts pounding. Did you hear that? Leo whispered. Probably just one of the other kids playing a prank, Max muttered. But then they heard it again, louder this time. Leo, Max, Sam. Curiosity and a strange sense of courage pushed them forward. The boys followed the voice into the woods, stepping carefully through the fog. The trees seemed to loom taller, and the forest grew quieter with each step. After a few minutes, they reached a small clearing. There, standing by an ancient oak tree, was a mysterious old man with a long gray beard and kind, twinkling eyes. He wore a cloak made of leaves and vines, and his voice was soft but powerful. "Welcome, young ones," he greeted them. "I've been watching you." The boys looked at each other, unsure of what to say. The old man smiled. "I know about your rivalry, your constant arguments, and your bickering. But I see something greater within each of you. I see strength, courage, and kindness. You just haven't found it yet." Leo crossed his arms, trying to act tough. "What do you mean?" The old man chuckled. "I'll give you a chance to discover it for yourselves. But first, you must work together. Only then will you understand the true strength of friendship." Before they could ask any questions, the old man waved his hand, and suddenly, everything changed. The boys found themselves back in the woods, but something was different. The fog had lifted, and they noticed 3 paths in front of them, each leading in a different direction. A strange feeling washed over them. Each path seemed to call out to them in a unique way. "Which way do we go?" Sam asked, looking around. "I think we're supposed to split up," Max said hesitantly. "Maybe we each take one path?" Leo shook his head. "No way. Remember what the old man said? We have to work together. Let's stick to one path and figure this out as a team." So, the boys chose the middle path, walking side by side as they ventured deeper into the woods. Along the way, they faced a series of challenges. The first was a rickety bridge over a rushing river. Leo was nervous, but he didn't want to show it. Max noticed his hesitation. "Hey, don't worry. I'll go first and test it out. You can follow me." As Max carefully crossed the bridge, Leo watched, feeling a wave of gratitude. When it was his turn, he took a deep breath, crossing slowly but safely. For the first time, he realized that sometimes letting someone else lead was okay. Next, they reached a steep hill covered in slippery rocks. Sam took the lead this time, offering a hand to his friends whenever they needed it. He cracked jokes to keep their spirits up, and before they knew it, they had reached the top, laughing and cheering. By the time they reached the final challenge, a dark cave with eerie sounds echoing from within, they felt like a real team. They entered the cave together, relying on each other for support and courage. At the end of the cave, they found the old man waiting for them once more. His eyes sparkled with pride as he looked at them. "Well done, boys. You've learned the first lesson of friendship, to trust and support each other." The boys exchanged a look, realizing that the old man was right. They had worked together, helping each other through every obstacle. In doing so, they discovered a strength they didn't know they had. The old man handed each of them a small, polished stone, saying, "Keep these as a reminder of what you've learned. But remember, this is only the beginning." With that, the old man disappeared, and the boys found themselves back at the campsite. The fog was gone, and their classmates and teachers were stirring, unaware of the adventure the boys had just experienced. From that day on, Leo, Max, and Sam were different. They still loved a good competition, but their rivalry was no longer filled with anger or jealousy. Instead, they encouraged each other, cheering for one another's successes and offering support during failures. When they returned to school, Miss Clara noticed the change right away. She called them aside, smiling. "It looks like you 3 learned more than I could ever teach you on that picnic." The boys smiled, each touching the polished stone in their pocket. They knew that they'd found something far more valuable than any surprise Miss Clara could have given them. They'd found the magic of friendship, and it was something they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. "And that's the story of the magic of friendship," their father said, smiling at his children, who were wide-eyed and quiet. "So," he added with a wink, "next time you find yourselves arguing or competing, remember, sometimes the strongest people are those who lift others up." The children smiled, nodding. And from that day on, they too kept that lesson close to their hearts.